Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 136 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to be going into our fundamentals series, and this is going to be part one of a couple that we're going to do back to back, try to get everybody really the most from their shooting, the most of what they're able to do as far as getting their training in, how we approach it, and getting the most from the time that they're spending at the range as well. So this is going to be part one of the series in which we're going to dive into the fundamentals of marksmanship and how we approach training and how you should be thinking about it as well too. So it ought to be a really great podcast. We're really looking forward to getting the new year started off strong. So without further ado, here we go. All right, before we get started, we would like to say thank you to KriegerDirect.com. Krieger Direct is the maker of fine cut rifled barrels. They're in the great state of Wisconsin. They have a new program called KriegerDirect.com where you can log on, purchase your barrel, and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days, which we think is absolutely phenomenal, especially for the lead times for a lot of your products in the market today. So we always say if you want the best and you need it now, stop over to KriegerDirect.com. That's KriegerDirect.com. We'd also like to thank TriggerTech. They are a proud sponsor of the show and maker of world-class triggers. We put them in all of our custom rifles here, and they make lots of makes and models for other rifles as well. So one of the greatest upgrades you can do to your factory rifle, honestly, is replacing the trigger with a really good, high-quality trigger. And so we think that is TriggerTech. So if you want to learn more about all the products that they make and the lines that they offer, you can stop over to TriggerTech.com. That's TriggerTech.com today. So when we start approaching wanting to learn the art or the fundamentals of marksmanship and wanting to become a great shooter, so for some reason it's in our DNA, or at least certain people, that if there's a mystic and an art and a talent and just something magical about willing a bullet to go really far away and hit what you're aiming at. You know, if you look at like that spice rack that you can buy on Amazon that has like 36 spices, and there's 36 ingredients in this, and some of it is almost like voodoo-ish that, you know, that you have a little sprinkle of this and a little sprinkle of luck and a little sprinkle of, you know, this and that, and there is just something mystical and magical about it. And some of it you just can't put a label on as to what it is. And there's a fulfillment with it. Like one of the reasons why people love to shoot steel is the feedback. You know, when you hit it, you hear that ring, that ping, and it's just incredible to listen to. And, you know, it's instant gratification in a world that we probably try to stay away from as much as that as possible. In shooting, it's a lot of fun, right? So if you really want to become a great shooter, I'm going to take all the gloves off. I'm just going to be open and honest in all of these next upcoming podcasts and share with you what I would give advice to a friend, you know, sitting here in the office and saying, look, Jamie, I really want to get good at this. What do I have to do? You know, what's some of the things that you think would really help me get after this and achieve, you know, my lifelong dream or goal of just becoming a great marksman? So I'm just going to share it with you with all good intentions, and hopefully you'll be able to use it and start getting yourself ready or set up for, you know, great success in the field and just a lot of fun. It's pretty awesome to pull off some pretty amazing shots, and it's really incredible when it's with friends and family and people that witness it and be like, wow, that was a good shot. You know, there's just something about it. You can't put your finger on it. I've been addicted to it since I was a kid. I just love shooting, hitting things at distance, and that art and mystique of it. You know, there's a little bit of art, a little bit of talent, a little bit of wind reading, a little bit of ballistics and math. And I mean, just everything that you could possibly nerd out on, I guess, is involved in this, right? Including your equipment. Now, to start this podcast off, I want to say, be careful that you don't get pigeonholed paying attention to one thing, thinking it's the one thing you have to do to be great at this. Like, for example, some people dive into buying the best rifle on the planet. And unfortunately, you can do that, but it doesn't mean you're going to be the best shooter. Same thing with, like, if you go out and you buy a world-class race car, it doesn't mean you're going to go out and start whooping the daylights out of people on the racetrack. Just because you bought that car, you have to learn to drive it. So be careful that you don't get caught up in one of the many traps that people get stuck in. And I can name a couple of them. So some people get caught up in the equipment part of it, right? Everything's about the equipment. What's the latest equipment? What's going to help me most? And so all of these things, they're almost like a quick fix Band-Aid. Well, if I buy this next piece of equipment, that's going to make me a great shooter. That doesn't happen. Same thing with reloading. People go down to reloading class thinking the secret to great shooting and marksmanship is the reloads. And again, we've learned at the school here over 15 years that factory ammunition and a great shooter and a solid rifle will just lay butt whoopings all over everybody. So it's not the reload. Now, these things matter, and collectively they start to make a difference as long as you're not using poor equipment. But you got to be careful you don't get caught up in these traps. Gear acquisition syndrome is a real thing. Musicians suffer from it. Shooters suffer from it. They have a way to get a vacuum cleaner hose nozzle stuck in your wallet, and it gets turned on high, and it's like a 5 horsepower shop vac. Man, it will just take every penny out of your pocket possible with honestly so little to no return as far as your marksmanship or your ability to shoot, right? So there's that. There's the ballistics and numbers part. We know of a friend of ours that I really like a lot, but he gets super tied up in ballistics and BCs and all the curves. And, he's a math guy. And so he's really into this stuff. And he's so caught up in that area of shooting, which, it's an area that we have to pay attention to. But he thinks that's the secret to hitting stuff, and it's not. Just because you know the math to get the bullet to hit the center, you still have to shoot the rifle. And so just be careful. I'm throwing this out there. There's probably a couple more examples I come up with, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Be careful you don't get pigeonholed into one of these things thinking that's the secret. It's not. Collectively, these things are important, and they're part of our, toolbox in which we're going to be pulling things from to make these shots, but none of them are the secret that's just going to take you from good to great. The other thing that I think is really well lost in this is setting goals. Writing down what you want to accomplish, setting the goals, and then making a plan. So in business, we write mission statements like, who we are, what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, the things that we're working towards as a business. We have to have that in front of us all the time. And stay focused on it. It's easy to be distracted, just like it's easy to be distracted about all these other things. A brand new bullet comes out, a brand new caliber comes out. Oh my God, we got to have this caliber because that's going to be the ticket, So having a goal and writing it down, like almost like what we consider like a mission statement, that might sound silly, but I am telling you as a friend that if you make a mission statement in shooting, I guess you would say, but you set yourself up for something that you're working towards, then you start setting the goals of, hey, I want to become a great shooter. I want to be a great marksman. I want to be able to reliably and dependably put that bullet where it's supposed to go. And here's my goals that I'm setting to accomplish that. And then here's my plan. So think about what your mission statement was. So for ours, and I'm telling you that this works, and I'm going to share with you why, but this is a really important podcast because it really sets the stage to starting to work on and pulling out the tools that are in our toolbox, right? When we started filming and started really setting up, okay, what are we really trying to accomplish here? Because we were, both me and Rich, we were married, we had children. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many hours I worked, like 2.5 jobs at least. I was still in the Guard. Our time out was so precious that we had to really be specific that what we were after. And as soon as we set those goals that, look, we're going to create this video, we're just trying to promote groundhog hunting. We know we're not going to become rich from it. This is pre-YouTube. We're not trying to be movie stars. We just want to try to promote groundhog hunting and this type of fun thing that, people just don't do anymore. And we used our tools to try to promote it the best we could. So as soon as we set out and said, okay, well, we want to do this, but what should we do it for? And our first mission was we were going to do it for the Varmint Hunters Association's 500-yard club. And then the second video we did was for the 1,000-yard club. And I'm telling you, that changed me forever on how I approached shooting and all of a sudden gave me purpose. Like there was something I was working towards. And it was a drive. Like when I went to the range to practice, I wasn't just going to go there and goof around, throw some lead. I was actually working towards something. I had a mission, right? I wanted to shoot a woodchuck with a factory rifle, a varmint gun at that, not a a 6.5 Creedmoor shooting 140 grain super high BC. We're talking 223s, 250, 50 grain bullets, 204, 32 grain VMAXs. These cartridges don't lend themselves well for long range shooting. I mean, 300 yards are awesome, but 3, 4, and 5, they are just as super vulnerable to all the environmental stuff and wind. But it changed me forever, because when I went to the range, I had a mission. We were working towards something, and that just like it's almost like it switches the lenses on your glasses. There's a switch that kicks on that just all of a sudden there's something that you're working towards, and that changes things. And then we started writing our goals down, like okay, so we want to do it with a couple factory guns, and we want to use some different guns, and we want to use some calibers that we think are legitimate for, varmint hunters, that A, it's affordable to shoot, hence the 223 and 22-250, a true varmint rig, which, that and the new 204, and kid-friendly. The 204 shooting a 32 grain bullet had absolutely zero recoil, even in a hunting rifle. That was, I think of a young kid that would be out there shooting it. 223s, 204s, absolutely beautiful rifles to shoot for this, right? Then our next goal we set up was, well, okay, we've got to get these rifles an inch at 300 yards. That's where they have to be. And so we started working on our fundamentals with doing load development, with working on different bullets and combinations to start making all this happen. So our goal, we knew that if we were going to shoot, we had to be better than an inch and a half at 300 yards. So we had this goal of, okay, can we get these factory rifles better than an inch and a half? And really my main goal was to try to get it at about an inch. And then that meant at about 500 yards, maybe an inch and a half, 2-inch group, right? And that would keep me on a woodchuck. And we worked our tails off. And, it's amazing when we go to the range, just how much you're focusing. Like all of a sudden it went from just going in what we would call spray and pray to we're shooting a couple groups, we're letting the guns go down, we're evaluating, we're writing stuff down, we're circling the groups, we're writing load data, what rifle, conditions, weather. We're starting to really work towards data, information, and results driven, right? We were looking for results. And as soon as you're results driven, then all of a sudden it changes you forever, and it changed me forever. The other part is you have to have a plan, like how you're going to attack it, what's going to be your training routine. My goal was I had to get to the range at least once a week and to work on something that we were working to make it better. So minimum, this was once a week. So it would be fundamentals training. I would be training prone, because most of the woodchucks we shoot here are mowed hay fields, and we can get prone or off a hay bale with a bipod. So I practiced prone. And then I would be working on equipment at the same time. So when I went to the range, I had a plan on what I was trying to accomplish that day. Maybe I was going to go and I'm going to run my 22-250. I'm going to shoot it at 500 yards and try to get some nice groups, because there was no wind, and shooting 52 grain bullets walk you all over the place. So really looking for the load performance and the rifle performance. And then maybe I was going to work with the 204, shooting out to 300 yards and trying to hit some small targets and really getting the rifle to fit me properly. So every time I went to the range, I was going with a goal. And every time I left, I felt better. Every time I left the range, I felt like I was moving closer to becoming a little bit better marksman. That way, when the opportunity presented itself, that we had those plus 500 yard shots, which by the way are actually hard to get here in Pennsylvania. A, you had to find the woodchucks to begin with. Then B, you couldn't always make them 500 yard shots. They were hill to hill at 250. There was no other place to get more elevation and distance. The fields aren't long enough. They're not mowed in between. There's tree lines between them. So I can't tell you that maybe in the first video we did, we might have had 6 opportunities past 500 yards all summer long. And so if we didn't do our work and we didn't train and every day leave the range feeling a little bit more confident, a little bit more better, and saying, okay, we're ready for this when it happens, because it's going to happen and we don't want to blow the shot. When the shots presented themselves, man, we really stepped up. Rich, I remember, shot, which was really an amazing shot. He was shooting a Factory Savage 223 lightweight rifle, shooting a 52 grain AMAX at the time. And he shot his woodchuck at like 523 or 527, 535. It's on video, and we put that whole video up on YouTube. But he shot it the first time, and it flopped behind a hay bale and flopped out the other side. And then he shot it the second time and killed it. But let's face it, 223 shooting 52 grain bullets at 500 yards, they just really fall off the planet. There's no BC, there's no high speed to them. And it was a great shot. He did it. He did it when the pressure was on. But the other part I always say is he's earned the right to hit it. He did the work. He was confident. He was prepared. Yes, there's things that could go wrong. The winds pick up and shift right when he's getting ready to pull the trigger. The woodchuck moves. You're getting ready to pull the trigger, and as soon as you pull the trigger, he ducks down in the hole, and you shoot right over him. That stuff happens, and that's something you can't control. But he earned the right for the hit. He worked towards it. He's earned the right to take the shot. He's earned the right, and he got it, which was amazing. And same thing with the 204. Like, I really thought my long shot would be with the 22-250. So when the crow was there at 527 and we alternated turns to shoot, like he would get one shot, then the next time a target was there would be my shot. And so we were sort of working it back and forth that way. That way it was always fair. And it was my turn to shoot. There's the crows at 527, and I'm sitting there with a 204 shooting 32 grain VMAXs with no BC, and I don't even have enough elevation in my turns to dial up to hit them that far because that was my 350-yard gun. And I pulled it off of a hay bale, not the greatest, most stable position. The crows have a kill spot about the size of an egg, and so it was amazing. I mean, I can't say who was more surprised, me or the crow, when he fell over dead. But what it was is, though, anybody can get a lucky shot, right? And that happens all the time, and that's awesome. You hear the saying, you'd rather be lucky than good, but I'd rather have both, honestly. I always find that luck tends to favor those that train and work to become good. The luck seems to sort of hang out with you more often. So if you're out there paying your dues and practicing and training, it's funny that bad luck sort of seems to go away and good luck now becomes your best friend in the background. That happens all the time, right? So it was a lot of fun, and it allowed us to grow. And, here's one to put out on the podcast, so whether PETA or those people would like this or not, I don't really care. It's what we grew up doing. We would have head and shoulder days. And I know that somebody's probably thinking like, what? We would hold ourselves to, we were only allowed to shoot them in the head. We're talking woodchucks for the entire day. That's the only place we were allowed to shoot them at. And at first we were like, let's hold ourselves because we were getting really good at the close ones, right? And so 200-300 yards was just almost like making it too easy. And we thought, let's make it hard. Let's take it. So today, headshots only all day long. If a woodchuck presents itself at 100 to 500 yards, doesn't matter. Our goal is to try not to shoot it in the body, but let's try to shoot it in the head. And you'll be surprised on how many times we pulled this off. Our second video had some really incredible headshots at 200 and 300 and 400 yards that were just mind-blowing. Like, after you pulled the shot off, you're like, holy cow, it's the woodchuck's head's about the size of an egg, a large egg. And to pull that off, I know some people might think, oh, this is gruesome, and, how can you do stuff and enjoy that? We're varmint hunting. We're trying to ethically kill these things off and get them off the farms, and we're trying to promote varmint hunting and this type of thing. But it was challenging ourselves to a much harder level of shooting. It wasn't, we could have wiped them all up and we'd have been sloppy shooters. We're into a part into the online long-range shooting school that we're actually starting to address this concept. So without giving up too many of the ghosts, we just posted up our 28th episode or 29th episode, and it'll actually be posted up on YouTube because it's a 3-part series, this whole next training thing. And we try to describe a little bit about what we're doing. So if you want to see it, you can pop over to YouTube. It should be up by Friday at 5 p.m. But the concept that we used at the school was the concepts that we used while we were training and shooting little targets at distance. So I guess to start this whole fundamental series off right now is let me just throw out some pointers. I'm just going to make this really, really straight and to the point. Have a mission, work towards something. Hey, I want to shoot an elk at 500 yards, or I want to my mule deer at between, out to 600 yards. I want to be efficient and effective out to 600 yards in case the opportunity presents itself. We had a customer call talking the other day from Wyoming or Montana, and he said it wasn't uncommon for them to have 30 and 40 mile an hour gusts when they're out hunting. And I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of wind. But he said it's not actually uncommon out there. So learning to shoot in those conditions and training and saying, look, I want to be efficient out to 600 yards, but I've got 40 mile an hour winds to deal with. That's a totally different type of training, right? And that really sets the bar. But think about a mission statement, what you're trying to do. Write it down. And think about, the goals that you're going to have to accomplish to get to there. What are you going to have to do? Well, I'm going to have to be able to pull off shots out to 500 yards. And here's the goals that I'm going to set. I'm going to get the rifle to sub 1 inch at 300 yards. I'm going to find a couple different loads. I'm going to make sure that my reloading is squared away, not hyper-focused on it. Make sure it's squared away, that the standard deviation, so you're going to start writing out all of these goals to get consistent, good quality shooting and training in. And then you're just going to make a plan. So I'm going to go out and practice once a week, half an hour. 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to take off for the range, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to work on something that's fundamentals to me. And that brings me up to one last point here was, one of the things that I loved about the early sniper matches that held was it was almost like a hunting trip on steroids, because you got into all these weird positions. It's not like PRS now. Now, PRS, I get it that you got a lot of shooters and sort of staged shooting things, and they're very hyper-timed and very multiple targets all over the place. But back then, it was like you went over the hillside, you found the target, you had to figure out how to get all of your equipment that you were carrying, get organized to pull off the shot. And so I always found it was weird, because it exposed you all these weird scenarios that you would never make up on your own, that you would find on a hunting trip. Like every hunting trip you go on, or every time you go out, there's always a rock in the way that's in your side, or you can't get the bipod or whatever perfectly level, or there's something in the way you have to move off to the side. And so it's never perfect, and you never shoot in the same type of scenario twice. It just never happens. So they really challenged you. And one of the things I loved a lot about the sniper matches, and especially in the early years, was every time I left a match, I found something that I wasn't good at, that I wasn't looking for. I'm pretty solid shooting prone. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, but there would be a stage that I've never seen before, shot from positions I may have never practiced before. And I would always work on what I was the weakest at. And maybe that's another part of this, is try to focus on what you're not good at rather than just keep practicing what you already are good at. So if you're a great shooter prone, that's good, right? Stay sharp there, but start focusing on your weakest part first. I always found it's the shooter that's solid at everything, maybe not the best at everything. So he's not the best prone shooter, not the best slung shooter, not the best off a tripod, but he's solid enough in all of those positions that in the end of the day, he wins the match. That's sort of the truth. You don't have to be the best in any of it, but you have to be good or above average in almost all of it. So find your weakest links and then work on that. Now, last piece of advice here before we get into a couple special announcements is find someone that, like in your group, if you're the best shooter in your group, you need to expand your group a little bit, right? You need to find other people that are better shooters than you, and you need to make them your friend. You need to hang out with them. You need them to help you and stretch you out as a shooter and make you grow, So number one, find somebody or a group or organization, or like a group of guys who go out every Tuesday night. Now, have goals. The spray and pray thing doesn't teach a lot, but find somebody that's a better shooter than you are, start making them your friend and saying, look, I really want to grow. Can you help me, right? And I always say, if you're the best shooter in your group, you need to broaden your horizons and find some new people that will challenge you as a shooter. The second thing is have a plan. And then the third thing is whoever this person is going to be your shooting friend or buddy or whatever, have them make you accountable. So when you're supposed to be out training once a week and they're going to call you up and say, hey, we're going to the range on Saturday, right? And you're going to be like, well, I got to mow the grass and I had to work overtime last night. And I told my wife I would do this project and that project. That person's going to give you all kinds of a hard time on the phone until you finally cave in and say, okay, look, I'll be there. We'll work from 8 to 9. And you come back, A, satisfied that you actually went and stuck with your plan and practiced, but then B, you're going to come back with a smile on your face, knock out your home duties and life duties and, make all the little things you need to do around that day that you were prioritizing over your shooting. You'll still get them done, but you did take that time. But that person calling you, I found that having Rich constantly calling me, hey, did you see this new bullet? Or, hey, I got this new powder, reloading that. So we were always on the phone talking about stuff that we're working on, and hey, how did that go the other day at the range with that? And hey, and then especially when we were training, hey, did you get out and try that bipod, or did you get out and how's your shooting sticks going? Because we made our own shooting sticks, by the way, which is pretty cool. So you had somebody that held you accountable to keep working towards your goals and sort of had a goal set with you. So if you're in a PRS shooting, find somebody that's really enjoying it, right? And maybe someone that's a little bit better than you are, and start training with them once a week. Start figuring out what their training schedule is and what they're working on. That's going to make you grow as a shooter. I always say that going out and dribbling a basketball Saturday morning for an hour in your driveway is not going to make you a world-class basketball player. You have to train with purpose. You have to practice things. You have to have individual components that you're going to be working on as a basketball player to grow. And it's the same thing in any sport, right? So that's the best advice I can give you right out of the gate, because we're going to be, we're talking about fundamentals, but this part's probably more important than the fundamentals part. Because if you don't have all this worked out, going out and practicing what perceived to be the fundamentals of marksmanship with no goals, no drive, no something you're working towards is sort of like going to a driving school once just for giggles and then never really learning to master the craft. Before we continue on, I do want to say a very quick thanks to MDT. MDT is a proud sponsor of the show. We're really excited to have them on as advertisers. We just got our ACC Elite, which we are super excited for. We filmed the part one of a review video. So we did an unboxing video yesterday and put it all together. And this is the first time I've seen it. So I got a chance to go over it, compare it, because we do have an ACC on the line for the school for the last couple of years. And this is the first ACC Elite we've seen. And I got to say, super excited. So if you want to see more about the MDT ACC Elite unboxing and review with a pretty cool thing, they had an Easter egg in the box. I don't want to spoil it here, but there was an Easter egg. It was pretty cool. So you can step over to our YouTube channel. It's Wolf Precision, and you'll see the ACC unboxing, and then we'll be taking it to the range and doing some shooting with it as well. But they really make an incredible line of chassis. They're growing. They have several new chassis, including a new laminate, which I think would be really incredible for like F-class shooting or varmint hunting. We grew up shooting laminate stocks as a kid, so it's really nice to see that them going that route, not staying all aluminum. And then they have the new JAE 700 or J. Allen 700 coming. They got the HNT 26, which we are building a ton of rifles on. It's a great hunting chassis. So just really cutting edge, and then it's good delivery time. So a lot of times, especially now with everything, there's massive weights and leads, and a lot of the stuff from MDT is either in stock or a very short waiting period, and we're getting it in. So that means a lot. So if you want to upgrade your rifle, whether it's factory or custom, stop over at mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. You're also more than welcome to stop in our shop here. We are at 305 Georgian Place, and we have several of the stocks on the wall. You can stop in. It's no charge, and we're glad to spend some time talking and showing to you. So you can stop over to wolfprecision.net, or you can stop over to our YouTube channel, where we'll have our unboxing video be released tomorrow, Friday at 5 p.m. So you can check it out there. The other thing I would like to throw out an announcement to is we have a friend of ours, Steve Prosch. Steve works at Bat Machine, so you guys know that we are very close to Bat Machine. All the guys there, Bruce and Daryl and Steve, they're just all incredible people. We've known them for a really long time. Steve did the shipping and does the shipping there. So if you ever called in to Bat Machine, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners have, and you had questions on anything, or you're ordering something, or you usually got Steve on the phone. I remember one of my first meetings with Steve was years and years ago when they were back at their old facility, and Steve's wife brought in this awesome breakfast, it was almost like Steve and his wife were treating me like family. They walked in, they had this awesome layout of whatever this breakfast thing was that they brought in. It was like a big tray of like eggs and sausage, and it was delicious. And I was like, wow, this is really awesome. I'd like to have a shop like this someday where we can eat like this in the morning. But just how kind Steve has been over the years. He's always been awesome to talk to on the phone. If I had any questions, if shipping was coming, he's really squared away. I really enjoy him. Anytime, he was always my contact point there when it came to shipping and, sending out some emails. Hey, Steve, do you have any of this available? Or, hey, we're waiting for a bolt head. Do you have an extra one? And so without putting too much information out there, Steve has come down with a really bad version of cancer and is having to go from Idaho to Texas for a treatment that hopefully, prolong and maybe help him a little bit. And so what I wanted to throw out there on the podcast, so we pulled together some money here, and we went to, I guess they started a GoFundMe page for Steve and to help offset a lot of his costs, because I guess an insurance company decided that they weren't going to cover this treatment because it's an experimental treatment that's had a lot of success. And so we hope and pray that Steve possibly gets a good recovery, or maybe just gets a long ticket on life, and we pulled some stuff together here. We went to GoFundMe page. Somebody started a GoFundMe page for Steve, and of course we here sent some stuff off today. But I wanted to throw out there to my listeners, and I don't know, and I hope this isn't taken the wrong way, that if you've ever dealt with Bat Machine, or if you've ever called in or had any dealings with Steve, or if you just want to do something kind for people, we do that all the time here. Like at Christmas time, I gave my daughter and my wife and my daughter's boyfriend a couple dollars. And I said, look, one of the things I always like to do is I want you to go find somebody in need, and you're going to give this to them, right? So whether it's a couple having dinner, that looks like, or a family or something, this is something that we just love to do, right? And we're not, philanthropists. We're not wealthy. We can't go out and just give. We're still growing as a business, so it's. I don't want you to think that we're going out handing $1,000 bills out. We don't, but we do stuff like this all the time to try to teach Gabby to do something nice for somebody, and it's paid off. I mean, Gabby was in tears this past couple weeks ago when she gave away to a family that really needed the help, and that's really awesome. And so what I would like to ask our listeners out there to do is, if you find it in your heart, if you want to say a prayer for Steve, that would be really awesome. I'm sure he and his family would really appreciate it. We're going to put a link down below to Steve's GoFundMe page, and it's really to help offset his travel costs to Texas to this treatment and for the treatment itself. If you would like to donate something, we here at Wolf Precision would say a really, really, really big thank you for doing that and helping him out. And if you've ever dealt with Bat Machine and you've talked with Steve in the past, I just wanted to put it out there that they're a family in need right now, and maybe as a community, if we can help them a little bit, that would be really awesome. So we'll put the link down below. It's Steve Prosch, and you can click on it if you'd like to make a donation. From us here at Wolf Precision, we would say thank you for helping Steve and his family. All right, so continuing on to what we're going to cover in the next couple episodes, it's going to be fundamentals of marksmanship, giving you all kinds of tips and tricks. This stuff really matters, and trying to get you the most from your rifles for the new year coming in 2023. But start with trying to make some goals and plans and mission statements and set up what you really want to accomplish. We've had a lot of phone calls from customers already about what their plans are and what their goals are for this year, as far as, wanting to get ready for hunts, wanting to get ready for an event. Really, that's what the shooting school was here, is people coming in and attending long-range shooting school as part of their mission. They were setting up a goal. They were making a plan to, hey, I'm going to go get some training, and this is what I want to do. I want to be confident out to 500 yards. And so we're in that circle all the time with people in that training part of it, and it's just an important part. The last thing I would like to touch base on is if you enjoyed the podcast and you would like to share it, we really appreciate that. That means a lot to us here. If you like the podcast, we leave a nice review. That helps us get found a lot across the different platforms. It's really awesome with all the listeners how much they've helped us over the years to grow the podcast, and we are now in, I believe, the top 200 in the United States, and globally I think we're in the top 1.5% as far as in the outdoor industry, according to some of the polls and researchers. So thank you everybody out there for making that possible. It's really awesome that people actually get something good out of the podcast. It really keeps us driven and motivated to keep trying to get good content. We are going to bring MDT on next week for a interview. And so we got that lined up, so you should expect to see that on Thursday. Now, that'll be a really great interview about a lot of the cool products, some of which I'm really excited to talk about. There's some history on some of the stocks that they're bringing out. So it'll be a great interview. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Also, don't forget our online long-range shooting school. You can find it at wolfprecision.net. We are, I think, on episode 29 for the postings. We'll have, by the time it's all said and done, well over 100. Thank you, everybody that's registered for that and attending the online course. We really appreciate that. We have new content on that coming out every Friday. So to everybody out there listening, I hope you all had a great, great Happy New Year. Thank you for taking the time to join us. You're listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.